Werewolves will be out tonight as we have a full moon, and a rather special full moon at that. On this typical July day across the United States, some places getting some showers and thunderstorms and some heavy rains, but it's not terribly widespread. And weather in the Northeast is a bit on the sticky side, or at least it was today. All that and so much more on tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show. Hi
And
there.
it is a special full moon.
Yes.
It's the super moon.
Super moon. Right. Faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive.
And this all got started. And the incredible thing is, this all got started with an astrologer, a pseudoscientist, if you will, back in 1979 in an astrological magazine. The astrologer, whose name is Richard Knoll, pointed out that the moon was going to be full and coinciding with perigee, its closest point to the Earth, and he called it the super moon. And you want to know what? Absolutely nobody paid attention to that. Absolutely nobody gave a you-know-what that this astrologer called it a super moon. But then in 2011, in March of 2011, March 11th to be exact, there was a massive earthquake in Japan. That, if you remember, was the earthquake that caused great damage to the Fukushima power plant in Japan and caused all kinds of problems. I think it was a Richter 9.1 earthquake. And Richard Knoll, the astrologer, mentioned the fact that just 9 days or 8 days after the earthquake, the moon would again be at perigee, at full phase, and he referred to it as the super moon. Well, all of a sudden, the news media latched onto that. They said, oh my goodness, you mean to tell me we had a super moon 8 days after the Japanese earthquake? Is it possible that maybe the moon and its closest to the Earth caused the earthquake? And Richard Knoll, the pseudoscientist, said, yes, I believe that there is a distinct correlation. And of course, if you ask any geophysicist or seismologist who has spent their life studying this, the question is, if there was a connection, don't you think that at every full moon coinciding with perigee that there would be the risk of a massive earthquake somewhere? And there isn't. But the news media, of course, looking and groping for some ways to attract the general public, and today on social media, we call this clickbait. The news media said, hey, we ought to call. And ever since then, since 2011, every time the moon comes to its perigee position coinciding with full moon, we call this a super moon. And that's how the name began. That's who originated it, was an astrologer. And so tonight, step outside, look up, enjoy the sight of a full moon. It won't look any different from any other full moon that you'll see during the course of the year, but it's a super moon.
It is a super moon.
So,
well,
we need to get special to it.
Maybe they should have called instead of a geophysicist, maybe they should have called a psychiatrist.
A psychiatrist. Yeah, Ricky. Yeah, exactly.
A head doctor.
Yeah. It's amazing,
well, look, Joe, come on. Gemini. Everybody knows that when Gemini's in retrograde to Libra, or if Mercury's in retrograde, that causes all sorts of huge problems worldwide. Markets go in turmoil, and trains go off their tracks, et cetera, et cetera.
That's why just a few minutes ago, before we came on tonight here on Joe and Joe, a few minutes before, I did a short stint on Fox Weather about this, and they were all agog, like, what are we going to see tonight? And I said, you go outside after 9 o'clock tonight, you're going to see a full moon.
Yeah, exactly. Next.
That's it. That's more or less it. It's interesting. If you take a picture of the moon tonight, and you take a picture of the full moon occurring at what we call apogee, its farthest point from the Earth, where it's about 30,000 miles further away from the Earth, or 14% smaller. Now, you put those two pictures together, Oh, look at that. That's obvious. It's in fact, maybe I can whip a picture up and I can show this during our show tonight. When you look at a full moon at its far point and near point, yes, yes, you can definitely see the difference in the sizes. But the problem is that you can't do that tonight. You can't look at tonight's full moon and then imagine the other full moon next to it because there's no way of making any comparison. So tonight's full moon really doesn't look any different than most of the other full moons that you see during the course of the year. But there is reason, I guess, to celebrate. There's reason to elaborate. There's reasons to get all excited over the supermoon. So we mentioned that here on Joe and Joe
Well,
tonight. It's a supermoon, Joe.
David Fuller has a question for you. Thank you for hitting super chat, David. And by the way, welcome to everybody on the chat board tonight. He says I'll be on the beach tomorrow. Will the super moon bring in a lower tide than a regular full moon?
And David, you are absolutely correct. Whenever the moon is at full phase, we call that time of the month spring tide month. Nothing to do with the seasons. It comes from, and my lovely wife will enjoy this because she is of German extraction. It comes from the German "springen," which means to spring up. The tides appear to spring up around the time of full moon, and astronomically higher than normal tide, but also in the same token, tides are lower than low. The range of tides, the difference between high tide and low tide is much greater at the time of a new moon and at the time of a full moon. And so we have higher than normal tides at high tide and lower than normal tides at low tide. And so while we get that at every full moon, it's accentuated by the fact that the moon is closer into the earth at this particular time of the year, at this particular moment, because we're at a full moon and we're also at a perigee, closest to the earth. And so the range of tides is even greater than we normally would have at a full moon. And so, David, if you are at a spot along the shoreline and you can watch the rise and fall of the tides, you will notice that at low tide, wherever that might be at your location tomorrow, will be a lower than normal tide as opposed to most other low tides that you would get during the course of the month.
So I might actually get to look forward. Maybe I'll get a low water advisory out of this. That's my favorite advisory.
I think they only give out low water advisories at such times when there's a lower than normal predicted tide, but also, like, for example, if
You,
you're on Long Island Sound, if the winds blow from a northerly or northwesterly direction, it kind of pushes or maybe blowing out.
yeah, no, it'll be
I don't
blowing
know.
out. It'd be more westerly. Would be
Yeah.
yeah. Usually you see it a lot more in the winter time when you get a screaming west wind. Um, by the way, uh, we have someone new on the chat board tonight, and I always like to welcome new names that join the chat board. I don't always catch them, but I did catch this one, and I love it. Psoriasis channel. I
Yeah.
think that's a great handle, and welcome. I hope you enjoy it. Glad you like the show, and I'm glad you're participating in the conversations that go on the chat board. And welcome to anybody else that's new watching tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show. Just want to point out really quick for those of you who have my free weather app and you've known the soap opera I've been going through probably on and off for the last 6 weeks. Actually, it's been more than that. It's probably closer to 8 weeks. Been having problems with it. Well, this morning, as miracle of miracles, it's fixed. And as it turned out, it was one, as it always turns out with technology, Joe, it always winds up being something really simple. And it was a simple fix, which the tech guy that I've been working with figured out. And I thank Damien very much for that. He figured it out and took care of it for me. So the app is working, all the pages are working, the home page is working, the video page is working. So hopefully, if you've been patient, and again, I apologize for the long stretch here of torture that I certainly went through trying to get it fixed. Everything's back to normal, so that's a good thing.
It's like that. It's like that song, "Wonder of Wonders, Miracle of Miracles." God took a Daniel by the hand, turned him around, and miracle of miracles, walked him into the promised land.
Oh God, I've never heard that before. It's funny you should. It's funny you should go down that particular road because about a half an hour ago, for some reason, Davy and Goliath popped into my head, and I needed desperately to hear the original opening song, "A Mighty Fortress Is Our God." Uh, so I. No, it's higher. It's high. It's higher.
Well, higher. Yeah.
Yeah. So I played it for a few times out on the deck with the volume turned as high as possible, so that and sound carries in the woods. So you probably could have heard that clear down to the river, which is a quarter of a mile away. So I'm sure someone picked it up and thought it was God speaking to them or whatever. But anyway, uh, yeah, it's just kind of odd that I should have thought of that tonight, and then you go down that road with Daniel. Okay, so uh, I saw somebody today uh, mention the fact that it got to 90 degrees yesterday, and in New York City got to 90 degrees today. So if it gets to 90 degrees tomorrow, it's officially a heat wave. Yeah, okay.
Right.
It's a low. It's let's keep lowering the bar for heat waves even more. I mean, it's been lowered down to like 88 now is the the new bottom, and let's go to 3 days instead of five. I just think, you know what? Why don't we just lower it down to 80? Anytime there's a high temperature above 80, let's call that a heat wave. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't see why not. Why not? Let's just use 80 now as the new bar, so that heat waves in the summer can last 120 days in a row.
Well, in 1966, we hit 100 degrees on this day, and I think that was like the fourth time that summer that we got into triple digits. I mean, it's rare now for us just to get to 100 degrees just once in a single summer. I don't think we've done it now in like 10 years. But in 66, we did it four times. And, you say to yourself, you talk about all of this talk about global warming and climate change or whatever. Why is it that we don't hit 100 degrees like we so many times like we used to back, many, many years ago?
Well, the I don't even think that you could even just from the standpoint of just whether it's climate change or not climate change, it doesn't make a difference. Those are legitimate questions that should be asked, and the reasons behind it could be who knows what. But uh, just as the example of the fact that in the around the world, and we mentioned this a week or two ago, hurricane activity has actually decreased in every hurricane basin except for one, which is the Atlantic basin, which has seen a notable increase. So what's that all about? Then the person who did the study, very reputable person, by the way, said that it might have to do with the fact that pollution, the air over the Atlantic has become a lot cleaner. So as more sunlight, more heat. The air over the West Pacific has become less clean. Let's put it that way. Instead of saying dirtier, it's become less clean. And that pollution there being produced mainly by China and India is reflecting sunlight back out into space, and daytime heating has been reduced. I'm sure there's probably more to it than that, but that was one of his findings in part of his study. So yeah, I mean these are questions. I think they're all these sorts of questions are legitimate. To simply say that, well, climate's always changing and it's been changing for uh, millions of tens of thousands and millions of years. I don't think that's enough. Okay, I think you need to go deeper to see what a lot of this stuff is. We can all agree that climates change over time, over long periods of time, millennia. But there are reasons why they could be driven in the short term by other factors, and I don't think it hurts to find out what those factors are, and if they can be, if it's something that is in the long term harmful, we could fix it, or at least try to fix it. Of course, we'll always wind up screwing something else, but no matter. It's all part of the fun of being a human being. And waiting for the apocalypse, Joe. We're waiting for the apocalypse so we can bet on it once and never collect the bet.
Well, Keith James II is mentioning that today is the anniversary of the blackout of 1977, and he also asks, what was the length of time? How many consecutive days of 90 plus occurred during the blackout of 77? Of course, the blackout only lasted a day, about 24 hours in the New York metropolitan area, which was certainly long enough. But it's an interesting question. That day was 93 degrees in New York City, and that was one of the cooler days of the heat wave that started on that day. Joe, that heat wave in 1977 lasted not 3 days, not 5 days, not 7 days, not 8 days. That heat wave was a 9-day heat wave in
Yes.
1977. That was a long, long stretch of hot weather here in metropolitan New York.
And I think there were 3 days in that stretch where it got over 100. I think the hottest day it got to I seem to remember 104, and sticks in my head.
Yeah.
So
I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. And we were all like waiting. We were almost on bended knee when we heard that there was a cold front in Canada that would be coming our way that would finally break the heat, which finally did happen.
And you know what? We didn't get it. And I remember this clearly. Not a drop of rain from that cold front. Not a drop. Nothing.
Yeah.
Zero. People were thinking, with all this heat, this front's going to come through. There are going to be all these vicious big thunderstorms. All there was there's hardly even any clouds with it. All it was a wind shift, and that was the end of that. So sometimes it doesn't always. Sometimes heat waves end in a bang, and sometimes they end with a whimper. And in that particular case, it ended in a whimper. So speaking of which, so we've got your full moon thing going on tonight, Le Moon des Super, and I'm checking the satellite loop here. I mean, there's some streaks of high clouds, Joe, but there's also a lot of wide open patches of clear skies. Okay, I accidentally clicked something here, but it'll. There we go. It's actually a close-up view. Oh, this might work. But there's actually a lot of clear skies, just some patchy clouds around here and there. But for the most part, I don't think there's anything that's going to get in the way. By the way, there's one thunderstorm cell that's just moved out of the Catskills and is moving eastward. It's going to pass north of you and go into probably northernmost Litchfield County in Connecticut. And that's it as far as shower and thunderstorm activity is concerned in the Northeast today.
And that's it. I mean, on my Facebook page, I did mention a chance for a thunderstorm this evening and then clearing later tonight. And there may also be a chance for a few scattered thunderstorms around later tomorrow. And the way our luck has been holding, we'll probably just go through the afternoon and evening with a lot of ominous looking clouds and absolutely nothing. But we could always hope.
Yes. Seeing a lot of scattered shower and thunderstorm activity from central Georgia westward across Alabama and Mississippi into Louisiana, sort of east-west. This has just been the area where we've been seeing stuff develop during the afternoon and evening hours. Also seeing some scattered thunderstorms in parts of North Carolina and a fairly interesting-looking cluster over Florida. The monsoon is active in the southwest, and we're seeing a lot of clouds and some thunderstorms there too, extending up into parts of Montana. So once again, the great state of Montana getting the chance for some severe weather tonight. Here's what it looks like on the radar. You can see there's a couple of special marine warnings there that have now ended in northeastern North Carolina. There's a sort of narrow band that runs from south central Virginia across North Carolina near Raleigh-Durham and Winston-Salem, and then runs into South Carolina north of Columbia, swings across it just south of Atlanta, down to about Montgomery, and then further south in Mississippi uh, near Hattiesburg, and then it curls northwestward from there. Also seeing some showers and storms in a narrow east-west line from Pittsburgh to Columbus, Ohio, going west to Indianapolis, and northwest from there into Illinois. That is moving southeastward. And the showers and storms that are in upstate New York, those are mostly moving on up to the northeast. So the activity is I don't know. There's an upper trough that's moving through the Great Lakes that we're going to see tomorrow. And meanwhile, you can see the showers and storms that have picked up in parts of Montana, but nothing severe yet. The Storm Prediction Center has a slight risk of severe weather, and they do have two severe thunderstorm watches that cover most of the state of Montana at the moment. Marginal risk from the Carolinas to East Texas. Playing out with a small area of slight risk in Mississippi and Alabama. Also, a small area of marginal risk across northern Ohio into western PA. And that's it as far as severe weather risk is concerned. And in fact, Joe, the severe weather is not going to be really a big factor the next few days. There's been marginal risk in the coastal Carolinas to Georgia tomorrow, also up in the northern plains. Some marginal risk. And then for day 3, which is Friday into Saturday, the marginal risk back in eastern Montana, the western Dakotas, and eastern Wyoming. Otherwise, there's nothing from the standpoint of any kind of slight risk or enhanced risk or anything like that. And rainfall over the next 7 days as we take a look at what WPC has in store for us once the map refreshes here. And boy, it looks just like the map from 12Z. Half to 3/4 inch rainfalls from eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England. Lesser amounts as you head down into Virginia. Then it picks up again in coastal North and South Carolina. Then it goes down again into Georgia. The Gulf Coast still pretty active with another few inches of rain being indicated there on top of what was already has fallen. Half an inch to pockets of 1.5 inches in the Ohio Valley. And just scattered precip up in the northern plains. A little bit of action there in Colorado and in parts of Utah as the monsoon feeds in the moisture. And that is that as far as rain is concerned. I, Joe, do not see much of anything happening going forward here. I threw in the chance for tomorrow here in the Northeast. You can see there's a front that's coming through with an upper trough, and there might be some showers and thunderstorms running around, overnight in parts of Pennsylvania and upstate New York. And then tomorrow, later in the afternoon and evening, some scattered showers and thunderstorms pop up, and then that goes out. I don't really see too much happening here going into Friday and Saturday. Maybe the GFS on the 12Z run tried to bring a front through sometime early Sunday morning, some kind of cold front here with some showers and storms. Oh, actually, no, I'm a week ahead. What am I doing? Oh, my God, I had the map. Never mind. It looks sort of the same, but it didn't look quite right. Okay, let's try this again. All right, nothing much happens tonight. That we know. A couple of scattered showers and storms tomorrow. Little humidity break on Friday into Saturday. Not a big humidity break, but there is going to be a little bit of dew point relief because that upper trough moves on through. Then we get into Saturday and Sunday. Some patchy stuff down in the mid-Atlantic into the southeast that kind of noses up into New Jersey, but that's about it. Some scattered stuff on Sunday. And then on Monday, we've got a cold front with some showers and storms. I apologize for that. I was looking at those like it didn't look right. Where did that front come from? It wasn't there before. But again, we're just more of the same nonsense that what we've been seeing. There's not much here really to speak of with regards to changing this anytime soon.
Yeah, it's the same old, I guess. And I'm just looking here on the chat board, and one of the super chat hits that we have tonight from David Schwartz. He's asking, is the La Nina causing the recurrent weather pattern that we're seeing, or is it something else going on in the atmosphere like the MJO? No, folks, for the uninitiated, MJO is not the mojo.
Right.
It is the Madden-Julian oscillation. And
Right, which is, by the way, illegal in several states. Just want to point that out.
yes,
In certain states in this country, you cannot oscillate in any way, shape, or
yes.
form. But anyway, go on. I'm sorry to
So
interrupt.
no, no, but I mean, I was going to ask your humble opinion. I mean, do you think La Nina is causing the recurrent weather pattern, or is it something else?
Yeah,
Or maybe it's just
La Nina may be part of the equation. I'm really more interested, though, in what's going on up in Canada. This very busy pattern for June and July. I mean, it's just been exceptionally busy up there, and it's at times rather stormy. And I'm curious as to why that's happening. Now, uh, I mean, it might have to do with the fact that I know the ice melt, where the ice sheet is at its great at its largest is close to Siberia, and that has maybe not melted down to what it usually does. I haven't really paid close attention to it, but I'm a little more curious as to why. I'd like to know why Canada is as busy as it is. So it's probably some La Nina is involved in there, but there's something going on up in the polar region and in Canada that is I think the bigger driver here.
okay. Well, we'll just see how things go. I'm just looking at the. I was hoping that they were going to release an update on the U.S. monthly drought outlook, but it's still valid as of July the 5th. I guess they don't do it on a weekly basis because if they did, we would have had the update from July 12th, this being the 13th, but they haven't yet updated. So maybe it's a monthly thing. But what they're basically saying is that drought is persisting over a good part of Massachusetts, a portion of Maine, and uh, there's some improvement over portions of eastern Connecticut and Rhode Island.
Do you have the
But here,
map up on the screen?
no, I don't. I'm just looking at this quickly.
You got some moon
I do have
shots.
something on the screen.
You have some moon
Yes,
shots on the
I
screen.
promised I'd show. I promised I'd show the difference between a supermoon and a not so supermoon. The supermoon that you see on the left, that's kind of like what we have tonight, where the moon is at near full phase and is also closest to the Earth. But 6 months ago, when the moon was at around full phase in December of 2021, it was near apogee. And as you can see, Joe, there is a very distinct difference between a full moon that is near its closest point to the Earth versus a full moon that is at its farthest point. And there is a 14% difference. And as I said, when you see a picture like this, you say, oh, well, it's so obvious. It's so obvious that, the moon when it's close is so much bigger than the moon when it's far off in its orbit. But the problem is that when you're trying to see that visually in the sky, you can't because there's nothing that you can make a comparison to. Every moon, for the most part, looks pretty much the same. Maybe if you have, very acute vision, you might notice that tonight's moon is a little bit bigger than normal. But really, you can't really see it unless you take a picture when it's close and take another picture when it's far, and then it becomes obvious that it's 14% bigger than when it's at its far point or apogee. So that's why tonight's moon is referred to as the super moon. I might also point out Neil deGrasse Tyson, uh, who does not like the supermoon moniker, once said, "Go to your local pizzeria and ask the guy behind the counter for a super pizza. And if he did it on the same proportionate scale as the supermoon versus the small moon, or when it's at its far point, you'd get a pizza that was maybe about a half inch or three-quarters of an inch bigger. I mean, is it not a super duper pizza, but just one that's a little bit bigger. So it's he says that supermoon does discredit to all other things that are super, and he included Superman in
Yeah, well,
the
clearly,
yeah.
clearly.
And thank you, David Carter. Thank you, David Carter, for hitting super chat. He says, "Joe, thanks. Time for a rain dance."
Yes, David
I don't.
Schwartz also hit super chat earlier, so I just want to acknowledge David. Thank you for hitting super chat, and David Carter also thank you for super chat. And thank you all that hit super chat. We appreciate your support very, very much. Trying to think if there was anything, nothing really exciting happened today, other than no, really nothing exciting happened. I went to Hooterville this morning for a short time. Took the dog to the dog park. And I watched a bunch of Perry Mason episodes. And unfortunately, I'm now into season 4, Joe, and there's um, at least so far in season 4, we don't have any shots of women in the courtroom with ridiculous hats. So I'm a little depressed about that because I live for those courtroom shots
Live
of
for those moments.
yeah with the ridiculous hats, including the woman that yesterday in one of the episodes that was clearly wearing the sorting hat from Harry Potter uh, as a way of getting rid of the Wicked Witch of the West that was approaching from the doorway. But other than that, there was not much as far as funny hats, or I like to call them ridiculous hats because they some of them really
It's
some of
interesting
them
when
really are
you
ridiculous.
when you watch on MeTV, the 9 o'clock, the morning Perry Masons are now currently in the first season.
Right.
But the ones that are aired at 11:30 at night on MeTV, 11:35, I should say, those particular episodes are from the seventh season, so they're much more advanced
Yes,
than the.
and Chuck Cardillo, by the way, asked, did Perry Mason ever lose a case? He actually lost 3 cases. He lost in the he lost a civil case, I believe, in the case of the terrified typist, and then he lost another civil case in another episode, and then he had a client that the actual show starts off with the client being found guilty and being sentenced to the gas chamber. So it's I think it's a 2-part episode, and Perry spends his time trying to find the killer, the real killer, which he does, moments before they were about to drop the pellets into the pot to suffocate the woman. But yeah, they actually had him lose a couple of cases on the show.
Yes, well, it only goes to prove that not even Perry is infallible.
No, oh, no, heavens to Betsy, no, not at all.
And you were right. That the case of the terrified typist, the case of the witless witness, and
Right.
the case of the deadly verdict. And he also lost, as you mentioned, a civil case at the beginning of the case of the dead ringer, partially due to being framed for witness tampering.
Yes, yes. So I'm still seeing episodes though that I haven't seen before, which is kind of nice. Um, yeah, I've seen most of the episodes, but there have been a handful that I've never seen, so I got to see them. Timothy Veltman points out it's also known as the salmon moon and the thunder moon because July is common for thunderstorms, and salmon used to run up the rivers to spawn and die this time of year before they dammed up all the rivers on them. Yeah, exactly. So
Sounds fishy
that
to me.
that's interesting. That's interesting that they used to call it the salmon and thunder moon.
Johnny Quest, you cannot have Matlock versus Perry Mason because they were both defense attorneys. I don't think you can have two defense attorneys going up against each other, can you?
No, you cannot unless one
You can have
become
them team. You
right
can have them
or
team up.
right unless one defense attorney is suddenly going to appointed prosecutor and has to play up on the other side.
Yes.
Yeah, and the funny part too is I'm in the stretch right now where William Talman was taken off the show by CBS. He played, Hamilton Berger, and
Right.
apparently he was arrested for being at an orgy. Okay, that got raided, and there was a morals clause. In those days, everybody's had morals clauses in their contract. So CBS wanted him fired, and Raymond Burr apparently, went ballistic at CBS, saying if you get rid of him, we're not doing the show.
Right.
So they came to a compromise where William Talman would be on like every 3 or 4 weeks for as a compromise solution. So now you got all these different prosecutors that show up in other episodes as murderers and other shady characters. Now they're sitting pretending to be prosecutors or even victims in other episodes. Oh, and another Ruta Lee episode, by the way. I caught Ruta Lee again today.
Ruta Lee, apparently from Alex Trebek's autobiography, because Ruta Lee and Alex Trebek once did a game show called High Rollers.
Yes.
And what impressed Trebek was that he said Ruta Lee knew just about everybody in Hollywood. That, she said, I don't remember if he had a little black book or whatever, but if you wanted to talk to somebody in Hollywood, go to Ruta Lee. She apparently knew everybody.
Listen, I was reading up on her today. Do you know that she got Khrushchev, the premier of the Soviet Union back in the 60s?
Soviet premier?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She got him to release her grandmother apparently was in a Soviet a Soviet gulag in Siberia for since the Second World War. She got him to release her, and then a couple of years later, she got a cousin of hers released out of there. She was. She knew how to pull. I mean, it's great. I mean, she knew how to pull strings somehow, and she was able to do this. And she was very active in and I forgot the name of the organization that was helping to rescue people out of the old Soviet Union. So for whatever reason, they gave she was able to pull it off. Yes, Ruta Lee was also on a Twilight Zone episode, which I can't remember the title of at the moment. And then she was one of those regular game show. Oh, I had something I wanted to ask you. Speaking of which, on game shows, let me just thank Shelly Man Studios. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. I'm assuming that my voice is coming over. I hope so. I got audio. Thanks, Shelly Man. Most appreciated. Okay, so
the name of the Twilight Zone episode, by the way, that Ruta Lee was on was called A Short Drink from a Certain Fountain.
Yes, exactly. So now, without looking this up, I just want to ask you I got to get the guy's real name. Okay, so the actresses Rosanna Arquette, Patricia Arquette.
Right.
Okay. They are the granddaughter of
Cliff Arquette?
Of Cliff Arquette.
Yeah.
Oh, who Cliff Arquette is then?
Was Cliff Arquette Charlie Weaver?
Yes, Cliff Arquette was Charlie Weaver. I'm impressed that you knew that.
who was the lower left square in the Hollywood square?
Yeah. No, I didn't. I'm impressed that you knew that. Very good. Yeah, Cliff Arquette. I was doing when I was reading about Ruta Lee. There was a picture of Ruta Lee that was taken in 1972 with all the people. That was some kind of anniversary, like their 2000th show or whatever it was. They took this picked group shot. She was in the shot, and some of the other regulars were in the shot, and Charlie Weaver was in the shot, and they made it a point to mention the fact that his real name was Cliff Arquette, which I didn't know. Mark G hitting super chat tonight. He says, thank you, Joe C and Joe R, for the update and all the interesting information that we give. Some of the information, Mark, is probably a little more interesting than others. And Leon Verbitsky hitting super chat tonight with the, I don't know, it looks like somebody with a baseball cap sideways. I can't read Oh, this is incredible.
Incredible.
Incredible. Thank
Incredible.
you. Thank you again for everybody who's hit the super chat tonight. Joe and I both appreciate your support. So I have a doctor's appointment tomorrow, and then Friday I get the screw taken out of my leg sometime Friday morning, and then I can walk around without this boot on, which would be so freeing after 7 weeks of being in it.
Right. Well, it happened when I was the week that I was away. So that was the last week of May. So here we are now at the midpoint of July.
Yeah,
So it's been a while. It's been a while.
I I uh, I guess I was really thinking back then, oh my God, it's going to be 6 long weeks, or possibly, I figured it'd be 6 or 7 weeks. Oh, this is going to be like these days are going to drip by, and actually they went by fairly quickly. So I'm kind of happy that you know that we're finally at this point. I'm just being extra careful because the last thing I want to do now is break the screw while it's still inside me, which you know
Oh,
which
please.
can happen. But it's I've gone this far. I don't need to do that now. It just makes taking it out even more complicated. It sounds terrible, Jacqueline Baker, but it really sounds worse than it is. I didn't have any pain when they put the screw in. I didn't have any pain when the painkillers wore off and that they gave me. I didn't even have to take any medication. And this one, taking it out is literally a 10-minute procedure. So they go there with an electric screwdriver and uh, just make sure they just make sure that it's set in the right direction and take the screw out, the hex bolt out because it's a hex bolt that's in there. Yes, exactly. I won't hear any of that. I'll be out I'll be out
Yes.
for 20 minutes. So all
Yes.
right, so we'll be back tomorrow night. And no, I haven't run into any more bobcats. The bear hasn't been coming because I took the food source away. So that's good. So Joe and I will be back tomorrow night at 7:30 Eastern Time for a relatively short show because I have to be up at 5 a.m. on Friday morning, so I want to go to bed early tomorrow night. So we'll do a short show tomorrow night at 7:30, and then we're going to take Sunday off this week for the weekend. So after Thursday, we won't be back until next Monday. All right, just giving everybody a heads up. And once again, a reminder, my app is fixed. It's working fine. I have a link at the top of the chat board that you can download it from Google Play or the App Store. It's absolutely free, and it works now. 100% works instead of 80%. And now it's 100% working. So if you haven't downloaded it yet, here's your opportunity to download it. Just click on the link that's up on the top of the chat board there. All right, we're done. You done?
I'm done, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Okay, see you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.